We're talking about this divine soul is mamish divine. Say it's a part or a share sample of God within the person, and that's what it means that it's blown into you with force, because blowing is not speaking. Speaking doesn't take any force. Blowing, when you blow out, all of your energy is put into that push. And that's one metaphor, this exhaling. So that means that just like you put all of yourself into that, it's the same a metaphor for how God puts all of himself into this neshama, this divine soul. Unlike the rest of creation, he's just happily speaking, and there's a world over here. It doesn't take a lot of innermost. And the other metaphor is of the child. Actually, it's two metaphors, the child and a thought. And because the child is like a thought, describe that. A child is like a thought. You look at the thoughts in your mind, all that chatter going on in your brain, you look at that and say, that's me. You look at your child and you do the same thing. That's me. But it's not me, but it is me. So we're called B'ni B'chor Yisrael, my child, my firstborn. Bani Matem L'Hashem Elokechem, your children. So then we get into all this idea as well of the child comes from, say, it's like a thought, because the child comes like from the brain of the father. And I think I got into this last week, because people read that, children don't come from the brain of their father. What are you talking about? So I have some notes there, which you can read inside, but basically, the initial signal comes from the pituitary gland, which is right beneath the brain. It sends an electronic signal down, and hormones get produced, but all along that electric signal is preserved. And basically, you're saying that the child has this DNA. So we have, so to speak, divine DNA, divine genome. Not that our DNA is, but the soul, the divine soul, is, so to speak, of a divine DNA. That's what it means. Not so biologically, but it's a metaphor. It's parallel. One is parallel to the other. Okay, all along we're saying, though, that where does this divine soul come from? It comes from God's wisdom. So it was, why does it have to come from his wisdom? Why can't it come from him? Why his wisdom? Simple thing. So it's a piece of him. Why have his wisdom? So first thing we have to get straight, and there's a note here on the page about this, is what do we mean when we say God has wisdom? And it's a general problem. What do we mean when we say that God is kind? He has kindness. He has compassion. He has might and strength. He has beauty. But it's very problematic, because we say God is one. And now you're telling me, yeah, he's one, but he has this, and he has that, and he has that. Well, either he's one, or he's a composite of many things. Which one is it? You know, a human being, I have a mind, I have a heart, and they're usually fighting with each other. And all these different things about me are not so much in harmony. Even if they were in harmony, but they're not me, they're things about me. So how do we say that there's anything about God if he's one? One means a singularity. It's not made of parts. Like the Rambam says that we know that God does not have a body or any form. He says, why? How do we know that he has no body or form? Because if he would have a body or form, he would not be one. I mean, a body means there's something outside of your body. There's something else. What's that something else? There's some sort of power or agency, whatever, that's not him. Can't be. Can't be a body. Same thing, any sort of form. Well, there's something that's not that form. He's this and not that. So it creates a lot of problems to give some sort of form. So oneness means there's no form there. So how do we say that he has a mind? So the Rambam's simple explanation to this is we don't mean that he has that. We mean wisdom comes from him. He gives us wisdom. He gives us kindness. All these things come from him. So you can't say that he doesn't have it because it comes from him. So if so, what is it when it's in him? It's not a wisdom or a kindness, but since it comes from there, so like saying another example that he gives in another part of Tanya, you see that light comes from the sun. Now, if you go back inside the sun, are you going to find light there? And put it in modern terms, photons, so light particles, come out of electrons. If you look inside the electron, there are no photons there, but they're coming out from there. Or something maybe closer to home, words come out of you. If I look inside you, I'm going to find words. Where they come from? They come out of your emotions. In emotions, there are no words. The proof is when a person's overwhelmed with emotions, they can't speak. There's no words, but they come out of it. So when it sort of gives us a way to understand how all these attributes we give to God, we attribute them to God, but not found it within him. But nevertheless, he treats us this way. He behaves to us with wisdom. He behaves to us with kindness. He behaves to us with compassion. So we, looking back, say, oh, he has these things. But from his perspective, it's just him. So we talk about God's wisdom. So if it's just him, what is he doing? He's contemplating himself. So there's nothing there. It's just him contemplating himself. So the whole point is to say that wisdom is not something separate from him. So this is where we get to on this page 40. In what way does God's wisdom represent its innermost? Certainly God is not defined or described by his wisdom. That's not him. He's beyond any description at all. The answer is that God is wise, but not with a knowable wisdom. This is from the Zohar. Wise, but not with a knowable wisdom. What does it mean, not with a knowable wisdom? It means he and his wisdom are one. You can't distinguish. Here God starts and here his wisdom begins. Like, you've got a mind. No, you can't distinguish one from the other. It's all one thing. So the Rambam explains this here, and he says, he is the mind that knows, and he is the knower that knows with that mind. It also says that he's the knowledge that is being known. God is his wisdom, while saying simultaneously he is God, the one who is knowing through his wisdom. All these things. And the Rambam goes on that you can't grasp this. It's impossible. It's beyond our reach. So that's the thing about the Rambam, that others try to make everything fit into rational reason. And the Rambam uses reason as far as possible, but he says there are things beyond reason, but he doesn't just say, well, that's beyond reason. He demonstrates to you, reasonably speaking, why this must be beyond reason. And it says why is because we are composites. You can only understand something that exists inside you as it is with you. If it's not in you, you can't understand it. Understanding is really introspection. Whenever you're understanding something, you're looking at, where is this inside me? Mm-hmm. Oh, I get it. If I can't find it inside me, I don't know it. Somebody tells me 1 + 1 = 2, but I can't find that inside me. I can't learn it. And same thing with the language. We're only able to learn language because we have it inside us. So, but everything inside us exists within time and space. Everything inside us, I guess that's because we exist in time and space. And everything about us is made of composites of many things. And so therefore we can know that there is such a thing as a perfect oneness. We can't really grasp what it is. But it's beyond us because that's not us. But we know such a thing must be so. So that's what he says, that like it says, If you're going to seek God with your intellect, you're going to figure him out, you'll find him. So you can't, just like you can't understand God, you can't understand his intellect. It says, God says in the prophet, in Yeshaya Navi, my thoughts are not your thoughts, as the heavens are beyond the earth. In other words, if God's thoughts are real thoughts, then our thoughts are not thoughts. And if our thoughts are real thoughts, then God's thoughts are not thoughts. It's completely different things. Two completely different things. And this is where the neshama is coming from. So this neshama of yours, the soul, is able to grasp this. Because it is that. That's where it comes from. But our minds can't. Here in an earthly form in a body, we can't grasp it. But the soul, initially, when it comes and says, yeah, I know what that is. So that happens a lot to us, that there's something that our minds can't grasp. But the neshama says, yeah, I know what that is. I know what that is. Why? Because that's who I am. That's where I come from. So I know. So we're saying that when you say the soul comes from the divine mind, that really is him. But it's him as it can come and be a neshama inside a body. That's all. Now, here comes the issue. Are all souls created equal? So, of course, if you're American, so all souls created. What does equal mean? Equal means they're equal before the law. Okay. Anything else equal about them? Are they all equally intelligent? Absolutely not. Are they all equally handsome and beautiful? No. Equally strong? No. So what else is equal about? Well, they're all divine. So remember, I told you before that many people believed, and probably most, that the soul was intellect. Therefore, somebody with a greater intellect must have a greater soul. Somebody who's not a thinking person at all must be they don't have a soul. That's what people thought. And the way to reach God was through your intellect. Be involved all day in contemplation. What do you do if you can't contemplate? Well, I guess you don't have a soul, no relationship with God there. So here we're saying, no, the soul itself is a chunk of God. But then you find people who are very simple people. So this is what he says, that there are tens of thousands of different sorts of levels of souls. And now they're not tens of thousands of levels, different sorts of levels, categories of levels, each extending higher and higher and out in. So the problem is, if all souls are one divine origin, and that origin is perfect oneness, so how can you have different levels of souls? How does that work? And he gives examples. He says he doesn't want to give so much examples from the lower levels, he gives them the higher levels. Compare the great level of the souls of our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Moshe Rabbeinu, to the level of the souls of our generation. Right? So, and he says the entirety of all Jewish souls over the ages are a kind of body in which our souls today, they're called Ikvus HaMashiach, the heels of Mashiach. We're the heels relative to the brain. So imagine the difference. You can stick a pin in the thick skin of your heel and you don't even go ouch. You would not do that to your brain. A tiny little bit of damage in the brain affects everything. So it's two very different things. So that's the way the souls that are extremely sensitive to anything that is divine or against the divine. And there's also sometimes there's a story of Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotzkerov. You're never too late. Please come in, sit down. We're very happy to see you. Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
So the Kotzkerov, his house was always open. Everything was always unlocked. And His wife was up Thursday night cooking for Shabbos, cooking up a storm for Shabbos. Comes in the morning, all the food is gone. Everything is gone. And she's screaming. All the students of the Rav come to the house, see what happens, all gone. So somebody says to the rabbi, there are thieves in the town, and there are people who come, and and you leave everything open. And the Kotzker starts shaking and says, at Mount Sinai, God said, "You shall not steal." And everybody there was shaking and trembling. So for him, it's impossible. How could somebody steal? It's an impossibility. You heard God say, "Don't steal." It's impossible. So that's a very sensitive soul. It can't be otherwise. I don't know if you've ever been around somebody who hears your thoughts. Ever been by such a person? People who are sensitive to thoughts. Sometimes you get very close with a person. If my wife's lying in bed and thinking, I can't fall asleep. I tell her, you're thinking too loud. It gets that way, okay? There are people very sensitive that way. It says about Rav Aaron of Karlin. So his teacher, the Maggid of Mizrich, told the students, please go to the home of Aaron Karlin and tell him to please stop saying Tillim. I can't sleep. So some souls are very sensitive, and other souls, you talk about anything spiritual, what on earth are you talking about? They have no sensitivity to it all. They told me people from who remember the old Poland and Ukraine, they said there were people who looked like you just pulled them out of the earth like a turnip. That's the type of people they were. They were totally earth people. Everything to them had to be practical, no abstract thinking whatsoever, no abstractions. It's not possible. No, I talk here about God and his wisdom being one. There are plenty of people. This means nothing to me. What are we talking about? God is a big man with a long white beard, and and you can't explain anything else other than that's their world. That's it. So you have these different levels of souls. And the same is true. So we said, imagine them back then compared to now, but the same is true when comparing souls within any one generation, in any generation, every generation. There are those who are called Roshei Alfei Yisrael, the heads of the myriads of Israel. And their souls are like the head and brain, relative to the souls of the masses and the common people. Mon v'amei ha'aretz. So, common people, the amei ha'aretz. Amei ha'aretz, his term we come up a lot. He calls somebody an am ha'aretz. He's an am ha'aretz. Usually mean by an am ha'aretz, he's an ignoramus. By the way, the ignoramus that the Talmud is talking about, an am ha'aretz, is somebody who can read and write, at least read. If he can't read, he's not considered an am ha'aretz. He's a bore. A bore is somebody who can't read. An am ha'aretz, would say, he's an am ha'aretz, means he can read. Not only can read, he's learned the whole Tanakh, can read it and translate it for you. He's learned all the Mishnah as well. And he's got it memorized. But he's an am ha'aretz. What makes an am ha'aretz? He knows so much. He can recite the whole Torah for you, right? He knows, and the whole Mishnah, all of it. And it's not like he doesn't understand. He understands what he's saying. What makes an am ha'aretz? So says what? Because he can't sit down and discuss it with us. That's an am ha'aretz. So that's how it's understood in the Talmud. In Chassidus, am ha'aretz has, although a much more literal meaning. They're people who their soul is related to the earth. Their soul came here to do things. That's the mission of their soul. Things that have to get done. Of course, they have to learn Torah because they have to know what it is they need to do. They have to daven, they have to talk to God and ask Him for help because they got things to get done. So it could be an intelligent person, but his main thing in his life is like my business and good deeds that I do and helping others. And so that's his mission. Mm-hmm. Whereas you have another type of neshama that comes down to learn Torah. And everything that he does is helping him in understanding his Torah. That's his main thing. Of course, he also has to do good deeds. That's not really what his soul is all about. So the Baal Shem Tov was very endeared to the Amei Haaretz. They're very important to him. He used to have them all around him by the last Su'udah of Shabbos, Su'udah Shlishis. And he loved listening to their Tehillim. And he saw in their simplicity, that, you can feel God in their simplicity, because God is also simple. So and we'll see how it works together. There's another term besides, there's the Hamon Am, that's the masses, the Amei Haaretz, and later you get to another type of person called the Kal Shebekalim. Kal Shebekalim means literally the lightest of the lightest. It means somebody doesn't take anything seriously. Everything's meaningless to him. Right, have a seat, never too late. And nothing. Like he can just blurt out who knows what. And so we had a big debate. How do we translate this? We translated it as the most base and materialistic Jew. Seems what he's talking about over here. I don't know. But often you'll find the expression, even a Kal Shebekalim wouldn't say such a thing. Yes, that's a Kal, and there's the Kal Shebekalim. So those type of people. So that's how we're describing these lower and lower levels. And says this distinction persists at every level of the soul, because every soul is comprised of a nefesh, ruach, and neshama. So even when you get to, so you're going to say like this, well, maybe at the neshama level, there's actually 5 levels. I think we have a chart in here somewhere. You put a chart there, so you know?
No, but I
know there is a chart somewhere. I know there's a chart. Maybe it's at the beginning, but the 5 levels of the soul. It's at the very beginning, and the key words to know. There's a chart over there. It's really page 34. There's Yechida, Chaya, Yechida at the top, then Chaya. Those don't get mentioned throughout Tanya, at least not by name. And then there's Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh. Mm-hmm. So those latter 3 are the 3 that are within the body. In some sort of way. Nefesh is really the biological life of the person. Is run by the nefesh. And ruach is the emotions. Neshama is in the mind. So ruach is already encompassing the body as well. And the neshama is beyond. And even at the point of death, it's only the ruach that leaves. The nefesh stays. And within each one of these, within neshama, there's nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Within ruach, there's nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Within nefesh, there's nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Within each one, there's all 3 levels. So somebody might say, well, at the neshama level, we're all different. At the ruach level, we're still different. At the nefesh level, well, we all have to do the same mitzvahs. A Jew does. We all do the same thing. Same tefillin, same Shabbos, same kosher food. There's no difference there. So nefesh level, maybe we're all the same at the nefesh level. This is no. Even when it comes to the lowest aspect of the nefesh, the level that's expressed exclusively in physical action, some are higher and some are lower. So even at that level, I don't know exactly how that's expressed. Maybe because some Jews, when they put more energy into it, less energy. Somehow they're different. It says, nevertheless, despite all these distinctions, every nefesh, ruach, and neshama of every single soul, from the highest of levels to the lowest, to those souls invest in the bodies of the common people, the Amei Haaretz, and the Kal Shebekalim, most basic materials, are all rooted in the same divine source that which we call the higher mind, meaning divine wisdom. So that's, first of all, they're all coming from the same place. They're all rooted in the same place. Like, we say they're conceived there. Ah, he made it. He made it. He let you loose. Please have a seat, have a cookie. Nobody brought any wine this week. Glad you made it. Where's Scott? Scott brought the wine last week. It's going to get to summertime. We're going to need the sangria.
Where's Barry?
Well, everybody like missed 1 week. That's it.
Oh.
Fell off planet Earth. So you're on time on page 40.
I'm on the Zoom.
Ah, Marav, what are you doing there? You're supposed to be come out of there and come onto the table over here.
Thank you. Next week.
And yeah, we need live people over here. Okay, I can see in Alabama they're enjoying on the couch. They're into it. Okay, that's good.
Rabbi, we're all alive, even though we're alive, but we're not present.
Okay. Real space. We're all connected. So the first point is that the root, we're all coming from the same place. Well, that makes a big difference because you get down to the core of the person, it's all coming from the same place, which means at the core of each Jew, it's the same Jew at the core. But we're going to elaborate on that. We can see it's much bigger idea. Yeah. By the way, I was going to say, so something from the Mittler Rebbe, the son of the author of the Tanya. He talks about how you have some people that you go to and you tell them, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Wow, that's amazing. Tell me more. That's amazing. And other people say, okay, what happened next? Tell the story. Okay, but what do you want me to do? Right. And these people, you tell them, well, don't murder, don't steal, keep kosher, close your business on Shabbos. Okay, I'll do that. Okay. And the other people are all excited. Wow, God, how does he create it? Wow, this is so amazing. I need to know more. And they're so inspired. So the problem with what happens to each group, the guy who's really excited, enthusiastic, where does he fall off the boat? He's enthusiastic, very passionate person. He's passionate about all sorts of things. And those passions will take him in the wrong direction. Meanwhile, the other guy is just, what do you want me to do? He's not so passionate in everything, and he does. What's he supposed to do? What's his problem? He gets so involved in what he has to do, and having the car, and having the house, and having all these things, that he forgets about what it was he really was supposed to do. So each one, the advantage is their disadvantage, and the disadvantage is their advantage. In different types of souls. Which one are you? There's a mix of all of us. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to totally turn tables over here, because we're going to pull out the carpet from under this assumption that we made. We didn't even realize that we made an assumption. When we say that there's some higher souls and some lower souls and so on, there's all sorts of assumptions, but there's one main assumption over there. What's the assumption? We're asking a question, right? Mm-hmm. How could it be if they're all divine souls, and fine, they're all rooted in the same place, fine. How can there be lower souls and higher souls? There's an underlying assumption we don't even realize when we're saying that. We just say the words. You know what the assumption is?
For higher and lower?
We know that there are higher and lower. That's not an assumption. We demonstrated so. Problem is the word souls. Souls? It's one soul.
Right. Parts.
Oh, right.
Of one soul.
Oh, maybe not parts, but aspects of the same soul.
It's like the brain's more important than the heel, like you said.
But this is the brain. This is
but it's
one,
the body.
It's one body.
But
it's one body.
But the brain cells, the brain cell is more important than the heel cell.
You can't say that either. Imagine having a brain without having heels. What are you going to do with it?
True.
We talked today about the big thing, your embodied intelligence. You think with your entire body. It's not just that you think your entire body. Your mind will think, I want to eat that cookie. Well, you need a hand to reach out and get the cookie. I want to go home. Well, you need feet.
Well,
Yeah,
you
so-
can be an amputee and get away with it. You can't get away
Okay.
without a brain.
Yeah, there are people, they're called bureaucrats. I hope there's no bureaucrats. Not those bureaucrats.
But that's interesting though. If we're all the same, that means like we're all the same person, kind of.
Yeah, but the with the foot and so on, the whole purpose of neshama coming into this world is to do something with this world.
Yeah.
The brain's not going to get that done. It's the feet that gets that done.
Mm.
So, and the feet of the, so it's all one. And you see this. There's in the Talmud Yerushalmi talks about how there's a mitzvah, you cannot take vengeance. You're not allowed to take vengeance. You're not allowed to even hold a grudge, to bear a grudge. And
That's in the Talmud?
And no, that's in the Torah. It says don't. Lo tikom, lo titor. The Talmud Yerushalmi explains it. It says, imagine your hand is chopping meat. The right hand is chopping meat, and by accident, it chops the left hand. So the left hand now going to take that chop extra.
That's kind of funny.
So you see, the Talmud is assuming we're one body.
Mm.
And that's why you don't bear a grudge. Not bearing a grudge is a very, very hard thing. I mean, a guy could have, he could have all sorts of things. He say, well, I'm taking him to court. I'm supposed to take him to court. I got sue for damages and everything. But I can't hold a grudge. How's that? I mean, it could be hurting. Could have lost a limb, God forbid.
But you can kill that person in self-defense.
Only at the time he's coming, but after,
Not after.
right? After
The court can tell.
the court can do something, but you take him, he pays the damages. Okay, listen, I don't, no grudges. How do you do that? So that's the question that Talmud asks. How do you do that? So this, and it gives this example. Your right hand to the left hand. It's one person.
But you're not supposed to forgive. Or will
I think you are supposed to forgive and ask for forgiveness. That's what we do.
Okay, so there's this thing, at which point do you have to forgive? If the person asks for forgiveness and really means it, you have to forgive. Let's say the person doesn't come and does not ask for forgiveness.
I'm thinking more Amalek, the
Oh, no, I'm talking about We're talking about the Jewish people.
Holocaust.
Talk about the Jewish people.
Oh, each other.
Id into Eden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Difference from-
Yeah, I mean, other people, the good people in general, so they messed up once in a while. You forgive them.
I'm talking about that.
But there are bad people who have totally destroyed the Tselem Elohim. They no longer have any image of God in them.
Right.
They destroyed that.
No godly soul.
Right. We're not talking about just the bad people. Somebody who steals whatever, perhaps a murderer, who's, that's what he is. That's not a good person. There's no Tselem Elohim.
Right.
It's very hard for us to say, but that's what he does for a living,
But,
I know a guy. I met a man in shul on Shabbos in Mississauga, Ontario.
cool.
Was there the whole day. And he told me a story. He was a collector for like the mafia and stuff. And before that, he'd been a boxer. He knew all the big guys. And he was well known. I don't know about his name. They called him Starving Marvin. Starving Marvin. And he was inside in the inside store. He drove. What's his name? Joe Hoffer was his name. The guy who
Jimmy Hoffa.
Jimmy Hoffer. He drove his limousine around New York City when had all the meetings. Like he would hear, what's with so and so? Oh, he's not paying. Oh, that's no good. And he knew this guy's going to be floating in the Hudson the next morning. You know what's going on. He's in the middle of the whole thing. This guy, and he's still at that point when I met him, he's an older man, but he was a collector, he's a tough guy. I mean, collector means goes to people's doors and, with his fist, pay, we can beat you up, But at the same time, Shabbos is his day off. He's at home. He married a nice Jewish girl that kept kosher. His daughters had no clue what their father does. And not only that, he was in and out of jail, but he also had like the highest award you could get in Canada, the Attorney General's Award of Honor. Why? Because there was a serial killer, rapist in Toronto, and the police called him up and said, "You're the man who can find him." And he said, "I'm going to do it because this guy's disgusting. He's bad. He is evil. He's evil." And his boss wouldn't let him off work. He was still driving, but he was up every night for 30 days. And he finally collected all the evidence and had it all. He called the police and just wiped out on the floor. After that, he couldn't talk anymore. He was out. He got this award. And I met him. He was a good guy. But he's a collector. Okay, so how can you say you can't know about people? Can't know about people. Sometimes you see the most nicest people doing the most horrible things. And what you imagine to be the most horrible people doing the most altruistic things. It's very hard to know. So in general, out of doubt, it's best to forgive if you can. But certain people, we're not going to forgive. Okay, but if a Jewish person comes to you and says, "I'm sorry," you have to forgive. What if they don't say, "I'm sorry"? Good advice, forgive anyways, because otherwise you're hurting yourself.
Psychologically, you're hurting yourself by
Yeah.
holding grudge.
Yeah. And even if you just say the words, it's very healing. Even if you don't really feel in your heart, "I'm forgiving," but you say, it helps. It's healing. Remember, it's a letter that the Rebbe wrote to the administrator of a school. The administrator had to let somebody go, one of the employees of the school. Let go, and things reorganizing. This guy lost his job. So he wrote to the Rebbe, "This guy's going around to the community, bad-mouthing me, bad-mouthing the school, and is making a big mess. People can pull the kids out of the school because of him. What am I going to do about him? He won't talk to me. I can't talk to him." The Rebbe answered him, "You should sit there in your office and awaken in your heart love for this man. And then it'll stop." Because we're all interconnected. So that's how it works. So, okay, so that's the Talmud. Let's go back to here. The organic growth. We're going to understand this idea. We're all rooted in the same divine source. Okay. To understand this, let's return to the metaphor of a child who emerges from the father's brain. Through a 9-month gestation in the mother's womb, every detail of the child, down to the toenails, emerges from just that one initial sampling from the brain, right? It steps through many phases of diminishing complexity to get more and more specific and simpler cells and gradual metamorphosis till it reaches the seemingly lifeless stage of toenails. So as I'm translating this, I said, I have to look this up. I got to know how this works. And I wrote it all out for you here so you can see how, and that's really how it works. You have the initial zygote. It starts off, zygote. It starts off, it's one cell. And then the first cells that starts forming are these stem cells that become neurons. And the neurons come to many other cells. And then from those neurons it goes from the neurons are the most complex. So the first cells are the most complex cell. And then it goes down to less and less and less complex cells. Bone cells, fat cells, muscle cells, skin cells. Okay, 200 different types of cells that you have in your body that are you from your DNA. Okay, and then you get to the real tough guys. The opposite of the neurons are your keratinocytes, and there are these cells that are like, for example, here, and underneath your fingernail. And what do? They come there, and then they get rid of their nucleus. and they become keratin. They excrete keratin all around them. They're still alive. The cells in your nail are still alive.
Really?
You're cutting dead live cells. Yeah, it's not just keratin. There's cells in there, and they're still excreting keratin to some degree. There's some sort of life there.
Yeah, no, no.
They're cells. Yeah. So those are the real tough guys. So now you're imagining these are the different types of souls. There are neuron souls. There are heart cells. Souls. There are fatty cells. There are blood cells. Blood cells. Red blood cells. Very simple cells. And you've got muscle cells, all the different types of cells. I think the most amazing cells are the heart cells. You have these heart cells that are both neurons and muscles at the same time. They have to do that because if they would be separate, a neuron and a muscle, the neuron would have to tell the muscle what to do. Too late. Too late. The heart has to be right on the second, right now. The whole thing has to work together all as one. So all these cells are both muscles and neurons at the same time, and the walls are open between them. The walls open between them means each one of them knows exactly what the other one is doing. They're shared, and it's a shared experience. And they all 1, 2, 3, boom, 1, 2, 3, boom. So they're boom, boom, all together. They're working all together. And they do that for 120 years straight, the same cells, nonstop. Okay, those are amazing cells. So I want to meet those neshamas. Who are they? Okay. So there's all these different types of cells. And they say, yet even then, so they go down and they become all these different types of cells. But even then, even when the toenails, the keratinocytes, right? Even then, remains connected and actually one in a wondrous and powerful bond with its original essence and being, just as when it was an instance of the Father's brain. So this toenail, the cell in your toenail, is still connected to the brain. Now, I was looking how does that happen? What's connecting the toenail to your brain and so on? Well, what connects all the other cells to your brain? What is it? What is it? How does the brain direct the body? What's the system?
Electric.
Right, it's the nervous system, it's electric. It's not just, I thought it was just the nervous system, but every single cell of your body generates electricity. And as you know, electricity is not doesn't just sit in its own place and mind its own business. Electricity works as a single whole.
Yep.
So there's this electric current going through the entire body all the time. And every part of the body, even the fingernails. There's a tiny bit of electricity zapping through there. So what makes you a living being? What's the difference between a living being and a corpse?
More electricity on the corpse.
There probably is.
Well, for a while.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what really is happening is, let's say, there's a lot of squirrel corpses right around now in Sandy Springs, right? I don't know why the male squirrels have to show off in front of the female squirrels. I can run right in front of a car as it's coming down the street. See? Oops. Okay. So the squirrel corpse, there's plenty of life in there. Lots of life.
Well, there's not his life.
Not its. What does it mean? What's the difference between its life and not its life? It means that it's not a whole. It's not acting as a whole squirrel. It's a lot of different bacteria and other infestations and so on that are taking things over and things. Okay, but it's not a whole being. A living organism means it's one whole. All these parts make one whole.
For a while.
So you've got trillions of cells inside you, but they're acting as one whole. You've got hundreds of billions of neurons, but they're all acting as one. That's the point. What makes them all act as one? It's this electric current going through. Makes them all act as one. So that electric current is connecting every part of your body to the brain, which is the seat of the core of this electric current that's happening. So that's this powerful bond. So I understand all this metaphorically, is that now there must be in the Jewish people this electric current going around. So through neshamas, and it's all connected to the brain, neshamas. So this connection is not only expressed in the genesis of each cell of the fetus, even when this child emerges, right, and came out of the mommy's tummy as his own being, this core identity endures in every part of him down to his fingernails. That's because the essential vitality of the fingernails and their experience of life comes to them from a child's brain, right? So all the time, you can inject in a person a certain cell that's meant to go to the liver. The liver needs the cell. Inject in the person, wherever you inject to the person, and that, whatever it is, gets directed straight to the liver. How's that happen? I'll give you get a little cut in your finger over. And now, very rapidly, all sorts of different cells and little protein machines come over there, and they line up to do the job in order. Right? How do they know to come there? Not a bigger problem. They came there. How do all the other cells know they don't have to come there?
They've been told to go somewhere else.
The brain isn't telling you cell, you go over here, you cell, go over here. The brain's not doing that. The brain is sending out a message. There's a problem over here in this spot. These cells say, we're going there. The other cell, okay, if you're going there. How does that happen? Right? They're all sensitive. They all know what's going on with each other. They're working as a single whole. And what's behind this single whole is a brain. Not exactly telling each one, but connecting them all together and letting them work together, letting them know what's the problem, what needs to be done. Each one knows what it's supposed to do. Okay? So that's what's happening amongst the neshamas. There's this network amongst the neshamas to make them behave like a single soul. Right?
Id.
I remember this was when was the late 80s was the war in Bosnia, Serbia, Croatia, all that, the Balkan wars. And so there were refugees coming to Canada. So I was in Vancouver at the time. And I had a friend, George Varney, who was high up in Immigration Canada. So we have these Bosnians come. And they're claiming refugee status. So Immigration Canada says, well, you need somebody to sponsor you. We don't have anybody here. So George Varney says to them is, well, when Jewish people come here, they get the Jewish community to sponsor them. You're Muslims. We tried. Okay. So a Jew looks in the newspaper, a plane crashes. How many Jews went? So it's this connection, we're all connected. So it quotes from the Talmud that the toenails don't emerge from some extraneous cause. It says from the white semen of the body comes the sinews, bones, and nails and from the red stuff comes the mother. So fingernails come from this original DNA. And as he brings from the Kabbalah, from the Eitz Chaim, that Adam and Chava originally they were coated with fingernails. Well, it wasn't fingernails, but it was a shining layer around them. So that comes from the brain. Okay, so now he says, now apply the same model, page 45. Now apply the same model, entirely abstract sense, to the origin of every nefesh, ruach, and neshama of the entire Jewish people. The origin of all souls begins above as a raw, pristine sample of God's wisdom, which is one with him. It then descends level to level through the chain of spiritual worlds, through the worlds of emanation. I'm on page 46. Worlds of emanation, creation, formation, action, all these different worlds. I don't know what the four worlds are. We've got an article on that, 4 worlds, tzvi.org. As they emerge out of his wisdom, as it says, you made all of them with wisdom. So it goes down. So the souls, this is just like the fetus in the womb started off as just one zygote, zigot, whatever you're going to call it. And then it branches out. First, very complex cells, then less complex cells, then less complex cells. Okay. Until finally you get to toenails near the end, right? That's one of the last things that forms your nails. You can see in the ultrasounds. First thing is the brain, eyes, and eventually gets simpler and simpler. So the last thing is the hair and the nails. So the same thing is happening with souls. They start off in the highest form, simple and very sensitive to the divine. And then it goes lower and lower and lower. But they all start from that wisdom at the beginning. So it's a process of descent, the entire spectrum of souls comes out of this. Just like you had the 200 different sorts of cells, you have all these different sorts of souls, even the nefesh, ruach, and neshama of the common people, and those of lesser stature, another term. And despite this metamorphosis and descent, these souls retain a wondrous, intense bond that unites them with their original essence and being, which is a sample of the higher wisdom. So they're all connected to that original mind. They remain connected to their origin because the core vitality and life energy of the nefesh, ruach, and neshama of every one of these simple people is from the nefesh, ruach, and neshama of the tzaddikim and the sages, the heads of the Jewish people in their generation. Because every cell, even those of the child's toenails, is fostered by the child's brain. So what is connecting the Jewish people are the tzaddikim. There's a entirely different view of things, because you can easily imagine that these tzaddikim sitting and learning Torah, contemplating them, what do they have to do with the simple people? The simple person, I have nothing to do with him. No? So, and at the times of the Baal Shem Tov, that was the whole problem. There was this class thing, because Jews were printed to be merchants. But after the Cossack rebellion, Shemenekis, the whole entire towns were destroyed. And Jews were left destitute. Some went back to the farms, some opened taverns, or found some way, but they're destitute. So you ended up with people who couldn't afford to educate their children, couldn't get a teacher for their children. So there were the merchants who were still on their feet. They managed. They had an educated class and non-educated class, and they despised each other. The Baal Shem Tov came along and reconnected them to each other again.
Didn't despise each other. The Miznagdim despised them.
The wealthy Talmidei Chachamim look down at these Amorites. And the Amorites, he doesn't like me, I don't like him. So it was a problem. It wasn't the first time it had happened, but it was a problem then. The Baal Shem Tov wanted to heal this. Here, now the Rebbe is saying, this is how the simple people are connected. The Talmidei Chachamim are responsible for it. And he gives it hard to the tzaddikim, the Talmidei Chachamim, the scholars. He says, elsewhere he says that the arrogance of a Torah scholar causes much more damage above in the spiritual realm than an intentional sin of a simple person. So either way, but here you see the connection. Ash'alf b'nei Yisrael, the heads of the people. So this is how you see in amongst Chassidim, there's a Rebbe and a tzaddikim, and they're connected to the simple people. There has to be a connection between them. Because that's their job, to connect. Just like why do you need a brain? Right? Plants don't have brains. Plants distribute their intelligence throughout the entire, right? A tree has lots of roots, lots of leaves, and the intelligence of the tree is distributed throughout the tree. It's a good strategy. That way you chop off part of the tree, the rest of the tree can still live. Good strategy. That's the whole point of the internet, right? Some of the internet comes down, the rest will keep on working. So why have everything in one place, stored in the brain? So you have a brain so that you can move from one place to another. You can get somewhere. Have a little, what do they call? Barnacles. Barnacles start off as moving things. They move through the water, looking for a stone to attach to. At that point, they have a neuron. They have a brain. They have neurons in the brain. They have a little brain. As soon as they find something to attach to, they discard their brain. They don't need a brain anymore. You say that the same thing happens every time you hire a smart person to work for you and give them a salary, or a professor gets tenure, that sort of thing. I don't need a brain anymore. I got my job. So the Jewish people have a brain, which is the tzaddikim. So this is the direction we need to go. This is where we're going to when we organize the whole people to be as one and work as one. Connect them. That's what they're there for. So now, I don't have my watch on me, so I don't know what time it is. 8:30. I'm going to just continue just a little bit, nevertheless. We get to the whole meaning of something else. It says, so the Torah says that you should love God, serve Him, and do all these mitzvahs, and cleave to Him, davkabo, bond with God. So rabbis of the Talmud ask, well, how can you connect? Davka means like glue yourself to God. How do you glue yourself to God? How do you do that? It says if anybody connects themselves to a Talmud Chochem, which in this case means a tzaddik, they're connected to God.
Through Him.
Yeah. Well, why can't I have my own direct connection with God? Why do I need Him to have that connection? Not my direct connection. Oh, you don't understand. We're all one body. You want to be part of that body, the most important thing is connect to the brain. So this is what the brain is telling you. If the part of the body is not hearing what the brain is saying, you got problems in this body. All sorts of problems. So they all need to be connected. That gives them, so the core identity, a core identity of a Jew, when a Jew sees a tzaddik, he knows this is a tzaddik. Why? Because that's my core identity. I know the tzaddik inside me, very, very deep, and this is him. And you know that's the tzaddik. Okay, so we'll go on with that and we'll finish chapter 2, God willing, next week. Next Thursday. I hope to see you all there again. Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi Freeman. Actually, next week I'm out of town, so maybe I'll also be on Zoom, but maybe I won't be at all. So thank you anyway.
See you. Looking forward to seeing you.
Todd to Julie.